Welcome. So glad you're here. Mm-hmm. It's tempting to think that we should worry about whether or not we're presenting a good Christian way of doing life, and wondering if other people are seeing us as good Christians. And we almost think of that as a holy thing to do. Mm-hmm. But is it really? Let's talk about that. Mm-hmm. And welcome again. Yep. Each week we get together to talk about this big gospel that we have come to see and to tell how that has impacted our lives and the lives of our spiritual community. And I'm Sylvia.
And I'm Janelle.
And usually we have Shane here. So tonight we have
the spouse, Janelle.
The spouse, the one, when he talks about his wife.
This is me.
It's Janelle.
Yeah.
So we're glad you're here.
Thanks.
Good to have you with us.
Well, thank you.
And I understand you have a story that you want to share with us.
I do have a story. This happened to me. I'm going to pull up my notes here so I don't lose track and all of that. So the story I'm going to tell, I'm very condensed, trying to get it as concise and anyway, what you need to know is that I work in a very busy office, customer service oriented, and it's a very small office. So there's only like 12 of us. So you can't, I mean, it's most of the time it's a team, and so you need to know that. And then something else, this story didn't take place overnight. You need to know that too. Not only the build up to the confrontation that I'm going to talk about, but also the resolution. It didn't happen in an instant. It was a story.
A process.
It was a process, yeah. And then something else you need to know is I'm an introvert at heart. Truly an introvert, and part of my personality that I have learned, because I've learned a lot about personalities, is I don't like conflict. As a matter of fact, I will run from conflict to a point where I will just ignore it until it goes away, or it becomes so massive that I have to deal with it. So
I'm sure no one else can identify with that.
No one at all. So the story I'm going to tell, like I said, it happens with a particular person in my office. And the first week, I could just, the interaction between us, just something, it just wasn't right. And I couldn't identify what it was, and I had no idea. And so I was like, okay, it's Friday, we'll just let it go. The weekend will happen. Everybody will reset. No problem. Come back the next week, and just something happened. And again, just something was off. And I couldn't identify what it was. But on Thursday, I remember it was Thursday because I went to Shane and I'm like, hey, honey, this is what's going on. And of course, his instant words is, you have to talk to him about it. And I'm like, no.
That's exactly what I'm not going to do.
Do you not know me?
Plan B.
And so, I was like, no, we're just going to ignore this. We're going to, let it ride out. Again, maybe it's a bad week. We'll let it go. And so had the weekend to kind of really mull about it, think about, this interaction, what was going on and stuff. And so Monday morning comes around, and I asked a question, a very specific question to this person, and this person snapped at me. And it was no longer, I'm just going to ignore it. It was, there's a problem, and something happened, and I don't know what it was. And so it took me a couple hours to work myself up into going to that person and saying, hey, can you not call somebody for a second? And so I said, something, I feel like something's going on here. I feel like there's a little animosity, and in some ways it feels like it's directed towards me. Is this, am I reading the situation right? Am I doing something? Did I do something? Can you tell me what's going on? And I could tell there was a body language change of, at first it was like, oh, I'm not going to deal with this. And then it was, yeah, this is what's going on. And so the basic premise of this was that this person had a problem with my work ethic, basically. I wasn't calling people. I wasn't being a team player. I wasn't responding.
And when you say calling people, it's calling the
people,
next person up to help.
Yeah, because we're customer service, and so we're dealing with people all the time,
Yeah.
And so at first I was floored. I'm like, oh, what do you mean? What am I doing? What are they? Oh, all these panicky moments of just, in my head, trying to justify, and then building my defense. And then there was a point during this that it was like, there's nothing I can say. There's literally nothing I can say or do that's going to convince this person of something that they believe in, something different. And so I really don't remember a lot of that conversation. I just remember the feelings of it and kind of walking away from it. And of course, going into, and my personality is referred to as a turtle. And I shelled, little protective in, kind of that mulling, what's going on. And I went to lunch, and I remember calling Shane at lunch and just bawling, this is what happened. You told me to confront, and him talking me through that, and what it meant, what they said, what I should, feel, what I should do, what I should, do I take this as gospel, or do I take this as, this is who you are and my identity.
Your new identity.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about that, and then I don't remember a lot of the rest of the day. What I do remember is being very ultra focused, not really talking to people, dealing with what was in front of me. But I do remember at some point during that day, I went to that person and I said, thank you for sharing. That was it. I didn't justify, I didn't, go into any more conversation. I just simply said, thank you for sharing, because I'm sure that wasn't easy for this person,
Yeah.
And luckily, the person went on vacation, the next day. So I was able to kind of distance myself from that and allow that space to kind of be away from that opinion a little bit, and
Get your bearings.
Get my bearings again. Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about how the gospel can impact us, and we're going to go into more of that today. But do you think that the journey that you've been on in House Church changed how you were able to process the information?
Absolutely. I think it gave me a different perspective of, instead of, what this person said about me is their opinion. And what this person said about me doesn't have to be what I believe or what I have to take on. I think that this journey and this bigger gospel has given me the freedom to say, okay, that's your opinion. Okay, can I take what you said about me? Can I use it to be constructive? Can I use it to be a better person? Absolutely. Yeah. But I don't have to take that as a burden, as a core, as a, beat myself up of, oh my goodness, I'm the worst person in the world, and I'm not a team player, and, all of those thoughts that went through my head in that moment of confrontation. So
able to be more objective and hold it out there,
and put
look at it and say yes or no, and
that lens of freedom, I guess. Yeah.
Good. Well, we're going to get back to the story later on. Last week, we got into our first of the 4 Gs.
4 Gs,
And conveniently, they all start with G.
I know it, convenient. Right.
Wow. So the first one was, God is great, so I don't have to be in control. And really what we took from that is, God has ultimate power over the outcome, and He always has my back. He is for me, so I don't have to be so worried about the long-term outcome, because I can trust that He has the power to make it work as He needs for it to work, and that by doing that, by allowing myself that freedom, I'm now able to live more in the moment. I'm able to try more things, able to live bigger. Able to do this Facebook thing. So that's definitely it really has a lot of influence in a lot of areas of life. So what we're going to read tonight, or learn about tonight, and share our journey, learning about God is glorious. So I don't have to fear others. God is glorious. So
There's a lot to that.
There is a lot to that. And we're going to kind of break that down first by saying, what is glorious?
It's glorious.
Yeah. What did you find in Webster?
I love Webster.
He's really reliable.
Yeah, he's been around for a while here.
Yeah.
All right, according to Webster, glorious can mean delightful, wonderful, completely enjoyable, conferring glory, full of glory, entitled to great renown, brilliantly beautiful. I like that. Brilliantly beautiful, magnificent, and splendid. That's good stuff.
That is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, God is glorious. They said that in the book, but how do we know that's true? I mean, that all sounds good.
It does sound good, doesn't it?
But how do we know that's true? Because when push comes to shove, if I'm going to believe what I see unless I've got some really good, strong reasons to believe
Yeah.
something different.
We were dialoguing earlier, the
Yes.
glorious. I mean, I guess the best way to, you kind of brought out, creation.
Yeah.
It's hard to not walk outside at night and see the Milky Way and just not think, wow, that's pretty awestruck. That's completely enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just any of those adjectives that were there.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah, creation, just some of the symmetry and flowers and seashells and amazing beauty. If you can think of something that is glorious, that helps you understand God being glorious, let us know. Put it in the comments.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of different things about creation and just imagining God's bigness. And and just to even imagine how he made creatures who can make creatures.
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah. And he designed all that.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Other ways that we know he's glorious, the life of Christ.
Yeah.
The book of Mark really points out the amazing things that Jesus did and how the people around him viewed him and how his works were just amazing. Yeah. What's another book of the Bible that would be good to refer to?
Well, I have one here, Isaiah 6:3. Let me pull it up here. I didn't, maybe. I thought I had it up here. Isaiah 6:3, this really cool. It says, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. I love this. Holy, holy, holy. It's kind of like, that little kid. Hey, 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 hey. You say it so many times, and then you put they put something like right in front of your face, and you're like, I'm not blind, here, or I am going to be blind if I cannot see it. That idea of, hey, shouting, glory, glory, or holy, holy, holy.
Yeah. Wasn't enough.
No, it didn't get your attention to just say it once. It needed to be said several times and loud.
I don't have the words to tell you how holy he is.
And kind of this idea in Isaiah, because Isaiah paints a beautiful picture all the way through about a God who is holy and a God who is this story of glory and holiness.
And deep compassion for his people. That's all part of his glory. Proverbs is another book in the Bible that's full of descriptions of the glory of God and the greatness and bigness of God. And really what we're talking about here, well, let's go into the fear.
The fear part?
Yeah, because it says God is great, God is glorious, so I don't have to fear others. So what is the fear?
Well, when you say fear, I think of, I'm afraid. I have a fear of spiders, maybe irrational, but,
I don't know, I think it's rational.
If you talk to my mom, it's very rational.
Spiders and snakes, it's totally rational.
So you think of this fear of a trepidation, But, it also talks in the Bible of fear the Lord. I'm sorry, when you say fear the Lord, that doesn't sound like I should be afraid of him. So there's kind of almost like, it almost seems like there's two fears that you kind of
Yeah.
not really come in contact with,
Yeah.
or not conflict, but.
Yeah. One of the resources that I'm going to share, they really gave a nice continuum of fear. And when you first maybe come across the concept of a creator God with this much power,
Yeah.
the natural response might be to have fear.
Fear. Because he's a scary God.
Yeah.
He's big.
Yeah. As you get to know God and as we have traveled along this path, I think our picture of God has changed.
Yeah.
And the result of that fear goes from terror to dread to trembling to astonishment
Oh.
and awe, reverence, devotion, trust, and then worship.
Worship.
So the fear of God, as we come to know him in his glory, where his power is amazing, but we see that above that power is his love.
Yeah.
That his love is even more amazing, allows us to worship rather than be afraid.
Very afraid. I like that. And I like that idea that it's not just a one or the other, but it's a
continuum,
journey.
yeah.
So I don't have to be locked into, maybe I don't, I'm not afraid, but I don't worship. Maybe I'm somewhere in the middle, and I like that.
Yeah. And some of the other synonyms that they give for worship is to rely on, trust, or hope in.
Ooh.
So if we take those synonyms and we say, God is glorious, so I don't have to hope in others. I don't have to rely on others. And it's interesting because God definitely made us in community and made us for community. It's not good that man should be alone. It's not good to isolate.
No.
And so there is a certain amount of I'm going to trust in you, but this is saying at what place on the pole do you have them?
So in other words, it's the difference between trusting in a friendship and trusting as their word is bigger than what God is.
Yeah.
Kind of that idea.
Yeah. Where it's I'm still going to rely on you, but not the ultimate rely on you.
Yeah.
I'm still going to trust, but not the ultimate trust.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, very good. If you have any questions about this, if you have some thoughts about what this might mean or what it has meant in your life, post a comment. We'd love to hear it. And again, God is glorious, so I don't have to fear others. So my devotion, my trust,
My
my
worship,
hope in, my
my
worship
belief even.
is in God. Yeah. God's holy love is as awesome as his power. I wanted to read a little bit in this book, and I'll just show you the resource now. It's called When People Are Big and God is Small. When people are big and God is small. This is a story they were sharing about a person named Nancy, and it's talking about how she's trying to work through some counseling sessions. Nancy began to pinpoint her problem as a fear of man and a lack of fear of God. Like so many Christians, people had become the controlling point of Nancy's life. She held others in awe. She put her hope in them. Furthermore, in all cases of the fear of man, as in all cases of the fear of man, self-concern was the force behind it. She relied on others because she believed they had the power to give her what she wanted. She needed people because of what she wanted. In other words, other people were big because her desires were big. And it goes on to say that as we come to know who God is, the question changes. It's not that we're now turning to God to give me what I need, because otherwise we're just
Kind of like
using
a genie in the
him,
bottle kind of
yeah,
thing? Okay.
as we were trying to use other people. So she knew that the answer was not to turn to Christ to meet her felt need. That would have made Jesus her personal talisman or idol. Instead, her answer was to put to death her selfish desires and to learn to fear God alone. As a result, her question began to change. It was no longer, where can I find my worth, but why am I so concerned about myself? It was not, how can God fill my needs, but how can I see Christ as so glorious that I forget about my perceived needs? And really, when we start to focus on Christ, that is a shift that occurs in our lives. That it's not that we just now have all the answers that we needed.
No.
It's that we can begin to have more space for other thoughts
Yeah.
besides ourselves. Yeah. Well, let's look back at your story.
Okay.
And how is it that for you in this story, how was it that you were no longer so concerned about what this person thought of you?
How was it? I think it was a process. I don't think it, like I mentioned earlier, it didn't happen overnight. And so, you're even in retelling the story, sometimes it was a little bit of still working through that, that perception of that person, that perception of myself through that person's eyes. It was still, working, just shifting to think of a bigger picture. Again, I don't have to take that as gospel, or I don't, not
As
gospel.
your identity.
Identity, yeah. It's more of, okay, my identity is, my God thinks I'm pretty cool. And if I can do things to honor him and rest in if I'm doing my best, then that should be where I get, my identity instead of what somebody else tells about me.
Yeah. So it's just kind of giving you some other way to think about problems. It didn't make the problem go away, did it?
No, it did not. and to me, it's still, a little bit maybe even in that back of my head, if it'll come up again, am I doing the right thing? Am I showing? Am I, and in the back of my head, and it's like, sometimes it's, stop, wait a second. No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It is, I certainly have found this, and we've talked about this before, it's a process to learn to live in the gospel. You can study it, you can talk to each other about it, but it's so easy to go back to that big old highway of thought that's laid down lots of lanes.
Yeah.
And difficult to shift out of that. And that really is, to me, that is the struggle of the Christian walk, is just allowing yourself to get out of those thought patterns and to get into something different, something bigger.
Something bigger, something
Yeah.
more grace-filled. Yeah.
Yeah. I always appreciate when I'm talking with Janelle. I think one of your favorite things is, have you found grace for yourself in
Where's your
that?
grace in that? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something I didn't have, even 2 years ago when we talked about that. That whole giving yourself grace. Giving other people grace, absolutely, but giving yourself that grace of, hey, and I'm not where I'm going to be in 5 years. But I'm growing, and I have to have that grace for myself.
And God loves me right here.
Yeah, it's a good
Right
thing.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your, you brought a resource
yeah.
also.
So my resource is Making a Difference by Dr. Larry Little. And like I said earlier about personality, I have really appreciated this. This has been kind of one of those books that has really given me a perspective of myself, giving me a perspective of other people, and realizing that, sometimes the reason that I may, just butt heads with somebody is not necessarily that, they're silly. or maybe other words that I think of, but maybe
Or you're
it's,
good and they're bad, or
Yeah.
you're bad and they're good. Or,
yeah, maybe
Yeah.
it's just the fact that my outlook, how I, at my core, how I operate, is just different than them, and sometimes I don't understand their core. So it's given me a lot of perspective, especially for myself, a lot of grace for myself, but a lot of grace for other people too.
Yeah.
So
Definitely understanding, gaining more knowledge
yeah,
it broadens how you are going to view things. So
Yeah.
great,
so
great reference.
good resources.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So next week we're going to go on to the third G about
Yeah.
God, and next week Shane's going to be back.
they will be.
I will not be. We're
So
kind
we'll
of
have
taking
another
turns.
guest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And next week
Very
they're going
good.
to talk about God is good, so I don't have to look elsewhere for my satisfaction. So that's kind
She
of a
gave
plug
it
for them.
away.
I did. Oops, I shouldn't have maybe.
All right. Well,
So-
thanks so much for joining us. I hope that you are finding ways to grow in your walk with God through community around you and by sharing in the Gospel XL. And we will be back next week. What time?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock?
Eastern time, I guess.
Central.
Oh my goodness, I'm on the wrong coast.
We're not on a coast.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, 7 o'clock Central, Friday night. We'll see you then. Thank you.